Time now for the award-winning #1 local talk show in Northeast Pennsylvania, The Sam Lesante Show. Now here's your host, Sam Lesante.
So if you're in grades 9 through 12, folks, you have a question, and here's the question. Who is shaping you, and how will you shape the world? That's interesting, right, folks? Who is shaping you, and how will you shape the world? If you're in high school, or if you have any of your children in high school, grades 9 through 12, this is going to be a very interesting show, folks. Two young high school students are here, seniors from the greater Hazelton area high school. And they're involved, it's called I.S.L.I, and that stands for International Students Leadership Institute. What's it all about? Well, it has to do with something that young people today probably don't really think that much of, and that's your faith. What does it mean to you, and how important it is? I want to welcome Matt Straub and Danny Sinofsky for coming on the Sam Lesante Show. Folks, you're both seniors, correct?
Yes.
Right. Now, just so we could, because sometimes I always say when people talk about God, for some reason people get, ooh, I don't know why. You look for God every day for your help and prayers. But it's inspiring. When Father Jack Lambert said, I saw him a couple weeks ago when you were there, Dan, and you spoke at the Mass, he said, Sammy, this is very important. And he's right. It is very important because for you two young people, I admire professing what you do, your faith and what it means to you. So let's go back a little bit, okay? I understand that both of you started in this program or this organization, the I.S.L.I, when you were a freshman. Okay, so Matt, your perspective as a high school senior, why did you get involved with this? Tell us what it's all about, and then we'll get specific.
Okay, well, I think I.S.L.I comes at a really good time for high school students because, in 9th grade through 12th grade, a lot of important decisions and a lot of different thoughts are going through your head, whether it's things, as big as college or what school or what you're going to major in, or things that happen in your high school or in your family or relationships with your friends or anything like that. I.S.L.I is, a really good way to help connect all of the things that you go through in your daily life with your faith and how you could, help get through all those different things, with faith right alongside it.
How did you get involved? What was the first thing that when you were in 9th grade, what made you get involved with this organization?
Well, we were informed about it through our church, and basically they said that it would be a really good program for us because we were active in our own church's youth group, but other than that, we did a few things outside of that, but nothing really big. So when they said that this would be a good idea for us to go to and it would help us with our leadership skills, it was pretty much, something that we really enjoyed.
So, it's here again, there are a lot of kids, young people, practicing their faith, whether it's Catholic or Protestant or whatever, which is so important. How important in your life as a high school senior or a high school student in grades 9 through 12, how important in your life do you find your faith is?
I think that my faith is really important, especially after you go through a program like I.S.L.I, because it helps you to connect with your faith on a daily basis, whether it's,
Give me an example.
Okay. Well, oftentimes we go through a lot of distractions in our life. Everyone has a distraction, whether it's, social networks, our cell phones. Not saying that those are bad things, but often those are things that could distract us from things that are really important. And a lot of times our faith can help us, get rid of those distractions. And often it's even hard to see our faith because of all the distractions that we have. And it's hard to, get to Mass on a weekend because you have, a sport or another activity that you're a part of. And it's really a good thing to work through the distractions in order to, see who you are and who you are because of your faith.
Do you find yourself becoming a little different because you're involved with your faith? I'm sure you don't go there and preaching every day and your friends say, hey, okay, knock it off, Matt. I understand I have to be good. But have you found out it affects you in different ways in the way you get along with your friends or your teachers or your relatives or people that you meet?
Absolutely. I mean, it really helps me to see everything in my life through a new perspective. Kind of looking at it from the greater picture. Like, if something's really stressing me out one day, or if something's really bothering me one day, or if you just, if you're having a bad day, like if you put it in the perspective and you see, maybe you look at all the good things that you have and all the, things that you're blessed with and all the talents that you have. And how some people might not have that, and some people, struggle with a lot more than you do. It really helps you to get through some of the hard days.
Today, being a high school student, for that matter, when you're in grade school, kids are advancing like you can't believe. My granddaughter in 4th grade, she teaches me how to use my cell phone. I mean, and so that shows you how advanced people are. Of course, I'm stupid when it comes to that, but the point is that you're faced with so many things happening in this world today. All right, your comment here about many young people are searching for love in a hate-filled world, and God can provide that. Okay, and people sometimes feel that it doesn't work. It does work, correct, Matt?
Absolutely.
Now, when you're dealing with your friends, okay, and do they sort of like, you get ridiculed sometimes for what that you profess your faith and you feel that Christ is important, God is important in your life?
I mean, I think more often than not, we're not directly ridiculed and we're not directly talked about, but often, if someone asks you what you're doing and you say, oh, I'm going on a retreat with my church, or oh, I'm going to a youth group meeting, they'll say, oh, okay, but then in their head, they're thinking about it, and like they're thinking, well, I don't really know what that is, I don't really know, I'm not doing that, so I don't really know. So I think a lot of people, in today's world, don't come up to you and say, that's weird, but often in their minds are thinking, why is he doing that? Why does he think that's so important?
You're living in a world today that is, sex is there, there's no limit anymore. If you watch the Grammys, I wanted to throw up. I just changed the channel. Not that I'm a prude by no means, but they're just destroying the moral. They're destroying the family values. They're doing the media is just killing everybody, and we're paying the price for it. People should sort of like turn their head, and they, you see. Thank God the abortions are slowing down a little bit. People have no regard for human life. Thank God it's not as before. And they give accolades to people like Wendy Davis, who said filibustered so we could kill more babies. Okay, and how does that make you feel when you see that? I mean, that where the spotlight gets put on people who are really destroying, in my estimation. Now, not all the Grammy people who were there. I'm not white blanket. I'm talking to some of the people that have, what they did was, I don't think was appropriate, okay, at the Grammys, and I turn them off. But the point is, how does it affect you and the kids? I mean, because, when you're in church, and whatever faith, Catholic or Protestant, how does that affect you directly?
Well, there's a really good analogy that I like to use, and it kind of has to do with basketball, because a lot of us are practicing religious people, meaning that we practice a lot. We go to church, most Sundays and on, holidays and stuff like that, just like a basketball player would go to practice a lot. But sometimes in basketball, when it comes to the game, you fall short. And sometimes with us, when it comes to the game, where we're, out in public and, it comes to us doing the right thing in front of other people, we fall short.
It's called being human.
Yeah. And then, it's really important to try to get through that and to, both practice and go to church, but also, pray outside of that and, help other people when it's necessary. And, if you see someone, whether it's in school or outside or wherever, is struggling with something, to, be that good friend and go up to them and say, hey, I've noticed that you're, having problems with some things. What can we do? Can we talk about it?
And example is so important. Folks, I'm talking to Matt Straub, and I'll be talking to Danny Sinofsky a little bit. And they're involved with the I.S.L.I. It's International Students Leadership Institute. Now, I'm going to give you a phone number and a website. They're having this convention, or is it
It's a retreat.
A retreat, which is fabulous. February 21st to the 23rd. The website is the dioceseofscranton.org. You can find out about that. But the phone number, if you want to get your child or involved, it's 570-2 207-2213. Interesting, folks, when you have high school students who actually are practicing their faith and doing some good things. When we come back, we'll talk to Danny Sanoski and find out his thoughts about this. Stay with us. Thanks for staying with us, folks. You're watching the Sam Lesante Show. Thanks for making this show the #1 talk show in northeastern Pennsylvania. I really appreciate that, folks. My email is sam@ssptv.com, and of course, our website is ssptv.com. Every one of our shows are there. And once again, we thank you very much for supporting the advertisers as well as the watching our shows. My guest today, folks, 2 high school seniors, okay, very interested in their faith and their life. And they're involved with a retreat that's coming up February the 21st to 23rd. But I wanted to get 2 high school students here so you could hear perspective from young people, okay, and no one lecturing you why it's important to have a faith, why it's important to practice your faith. They happen to be Catholics, and they go to Mass every week, and they, on holy days of obligation, they're there. And they don't preach, but they just do by example. And we have Matt Straub. Have you heard the first part of the show? Now we're going to talk to Danny Sanoski. Danny, the Catholic faith proposes the challenge to live for other people a way we should all live. Now, you know, some people say, yeah, what do they think? They're better than anybody else, okay, because you're practicing your faith. Let's go back to when you were, did you get involved when you were a freshman too?
Yes.
Okay. What made you get involved, Danny?
Well, like Matt said, both of us had been involved in youth ministry at our church since the 6th grade, so it was already something that we were very familiar with, living as Christ did, as Christ wants us to. And I.S.L.I came about, and it was an opportunity for us to further that experience in many different ways, not only through our own faith, but by meeting other teenagers, other young people who had the same desire to live as Christ did, and helping us to connect with them makes it a lot easier for us to live as Catholics in today's world.
You say that with, clarity. You say it with this, that you're very, it doesn't bother you at all. I mean, do you think, what you guys have done, okay, and a lot of girls, women in this institute, when you have this retreat, okay, you see different people, right? Different, and what do you find, Danny, when you're at this retreat with other people? What kind of feedback do you get from the kids and I say kids, but young adults?
Yeah, with I.S.L.I, you meet people from all different walks of life, Sam. I mean, different people come for different reasons, whether they were told to come by their parents, whether they really wanted to come for a certain reason, maybe something hard was going on in their lives, we don't know. But people come from completely different walks of life, and that determines what they get out of it. I.S.L.I is 100% a program where the more you put into it, the more you're going to get out of it. And we've heard so many different kind of feedback, but the most common one I would say is the difficulty of taking what we do that weekend and taking it home, because it's so easy for us to be, consumed with our faith when we're there and we're in that situation. But when we get home, when we're faced with the challenges of, the real world, where are we going to stand? Are we going to stand or are we going to fall? And that's the hardest part.
I'm smiling because I could just hear Father Lambert, saying the same thing. You're in church or whatever. Well, now take it out of the church, okay? Take the, I like the the hypocrites always get me. These people that profess to, they listen to the word and then they talk about people. They don't like people. They want to see people hurt and outside the church, okay? Whether it's a Protestant church or Catholic. I mean, they're total hypocrites as far as I'm concerned, okay? And I pray for them, I really do, to see how the anger that people live with, in their hearts, harden not your heart, okay? And Father Jack Lambert saying, look, we're here for a reason. We gather. And now let's take some of these things and be nice to your neighbor. Instead of saying something bad or say something good. Try to help somebody. I think you've experienced that, right? You're telling me that, Danny?
Absolutely. I mean, it's easy to be Catholic on Sundays for an hour. And,
yeah, right. Yeah.
And that's what we see a lot.
How about if you're in church and you say, I don't like that person, and you're going to communion? I mean, isn't that great?
Yeah, and
isn't that total hypocrisy?
It's a fact of life that, we're all human beings, and that's where that plays in is, are we going to live as human beings, or are we going to live as human beings that are sons and daughters of God? And that's what we're really truly called to do. So.
And that's why you're happy.
Right.
Danny.
Yeah,
Okay?
it's a challenge, but it's the only true satisfaction.
You're faced with drugs. You're faced with, as I said to Matt, you're faced with all the stuff that the young people are faced with, and they want to be hip, and then and when do you make that decision? Well, I think, as you said, if you have a strong faith, like you two have, you could combat those things a little bit easier. It's still tough. It's not easy. What do you say to young people today that really are not going to church the way they should because you find that if I go to church, what do you get out of it?
It's tough where to begin on something like that, because we're called to help with that with our peers, and the truth of the matter is that the drugs are there, the pressure is there, sex sells, and there's something that we have to do to stop that. And I try not to start by pushing my faith onto people, because as a Catholic, I'm called to be a prophet, not a professor.
Yeah.
And perhaps it's starting with actions. It's hey, maybe there's another way we could do this. Maybe there's something else that's fun we could do. That's not going to hurt us. And it's that example. It's having the courage to start that action, to start that combat, and hope that others will follow you. It's a battle of courage when it really comes down to it.
You face some hard times sometimes with your peers. You find that sometimes your friends may fall. And I remember a friend of mine who was going through a difficult time with his spouse, and I'm over there lecturing him and such. Just going back, and he says, "Sammy, right now I don't need your hell. I need your help." And it just dawned on me, you don't need the lecturing, you just need the help and the compassion. And how many times, and that's why I think when whether you're Protestant or Catholic or Jewish, it doesn't make, if you have a faith and you practice that, have compassion for that person. I don't think people sometimes have compassion. Like I said, you have some people who go to church who harbor terrible thoughts about their neighbors or their friends. They don't, and it's such a sad thing, okay? But I think the message that you brought, when I heard you speak at the Mass, and Father Lambert was right. He said, "Sammy, this is a great thing for young people." How do you tell somebody, a parent out there watching, there's a grandparent watching the show, why is this retreat, February 21st to 23rd, and I'll give you the phone number, folks, why should there, if you're between in grades 9 or 12, go to this retreat, Danny?
Because it's a challenge. I mean, I.S.L.I is a challenge from the moment somebody tells you about it till the moment you leave the door, because it takes courage to say yes and to go to that, because not everybody's doing it. Not everybody's going to church retreats on the weekends. So it takes courage from the second you hear about it to say yes and to go to it. Throughout the weekend, you're challenged to grow in your faith and your spirituality and in yourself as a whole person, to learn about love. I mean, you made the point about compassion towards others and giving help and not hell, and it's hard, but we're called to love and to be loved, and that's what I.S.L.I is all about at the core of it. When you break it down, we use this program it's a set of 5 objectives, and we use it to teach these leadership skills to help the young people to impart their faith onto their ability as leaders. But when it comes down to it, none of this is possible without love, and that's what it's all about. So that's the second part of the challenge. And then the third part, which is possibly the greatest part, is to take that and to spread it out in the world, to keep it going and to help other people to do the same thing. So
have you done that in the 3 years or 4 years you've been in high school? Spread that good word out and help, have you been able to do that?
It's hard, and it's amazing how much high schoolers can go through nowadays, and how difficult it is really just to survive those 4 years.
Yes,
And I've seen it myself, but without I.S.L.I, I wouldn't have had the experience that I did, and it definitely made it so much easier for me to become comfortable sharing God's word with the people around me.
So why is it, Matt and Danny, so important for people to have some kind of faith and to have prayer to have that? And what have you found? Why is it so important for young people, particularly today, as you see it?
It's a light in the dark, I mean, I've had some dark times, and I've seen it in my friends and in my family members in different ways, in so many different ways. But when it comes down to it, there's so many different kinds of darknesses, but there's only one true kind of light. And that's what having a strong faith gives to us, is a light in the dark. And teenagers today are expected, there's so little expected of teenagers by society. And our faith is a way to fight that. Our faith is a way to break those expectations and say that just because we're young doesn't mean that we don't have the power to change the world and to become leaders for Christ. You know, we're called to have power in youth, and so many times society asks us to put that away for now. But a strong faith helps you to take it out. You know, use it as a weapon against the world to bring this truth to everybody else around you as as an example through action.
How do you feel about that, Matt?
I mean, I completely agree. And I mean, often it's not about going up to someone and sharing them, with them your experience, or, telling them, why don't you come to church this weekend? Even though those are great things. While we were talking at church this weekend, one guy came up to us and he gave us a really good quote. And it said, he said, "You manage projects, but you lead people." You manage projects, but you lead people. So whether someone sees you doing the right thing and they think about it, and maybe just because of their own self, curiosity and motivation, they approach you and they talk to you about it, or they come to church or whatever. Often, it's not about, always being in front of people and always being, the one that people look up to, but, being there, regardless, no matter what.
Folks, I'm talking to Matt Straub and Danny Sinofsky, and they're involved with, it's called I.S.L.I, and that stands for International Students Leadership Institute. Now, they're having this retreat, and it's a fun thing. It really is. It's great. February 21st to the 23rd. Here's a phone number to call. It's 570-207-2213, and they'll explain exactly what it's all about. Or you can go to the dioceseofscranton.org and look at I.S.L.I, and it's perfect for any high school student from 9 to 12, and believe me, you'll be inspired by going to this particular retreat. We'll come back. We'll talk a little bit more to Matt and Danny. Stay with us. Thanks for staying with us, folks. Danny Sinofsky and Matt Straub involved in their faith, folks, and practicing it and doing as much as they can. They're seniors at the Hazelton Area High School. They're going to be involved with the retreat. That's February 21st to 23rd. A great retreat for anyone who's in high school, 9 to 12th grade. 570-207-2213. So Matt, in conclusion here, first of all, I'm very happy that Father Jack Lambert got me and said, I got to have these guys on your show. I want to thank Father Lambert for that, because you guys are inspiration, showing young high school students you could be a great student, but you could still practice your faith and do good. Why should someone want to come to this retreat, and don't be embarrassed even if they're not practicing their faith, Matt?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, one thing that's really interesting about this retreat is that it's completely put together by high school students. And we've also gone through the program earlier. So, we know what it's like if you're one of those, shy people. You're an introvert, as, the technical term is. If you're someone that's, not used to sharing and not used to, being in front, not used to, you're not the first hand that goes up in school, essentially. We know what it's like, and we've been through a lot of these problems. So it's, it's really comforting to know that the people that are there and the people that are there to, give you these skills and to help you through, this weekend, they've gone through the exact same thing that they're going through as we're all high school students.
And Danny, what advice you have to those parents out there or guardians who kids say, get to this retreat? Where is the retreat? Where is the retreat?
The retreat will be at the Fatima Renewal Center in Dalton, Pennsylvania.
Okay. And was there transportation provided if someone's from the area here?
I would say that it depends on your parish.
Okay.
Some parishes that already have a few kids going, you might be able to go with them.
Okay.
So yeah, just look for that.
Is this only for Catholics?
No, I mean we've had participants before who were other parts of the Christian faith. It's truly a very wholesome.
So it's
experience.
a welcoming retreat.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. But here again, you highly recommend this for any high school students, huh?
Yeah, beyond any shadow of doubt. I mean, the thing is, you asked about advice earlier, and
Yeah.
the first thing I would say is to keep an open mind and an open heart, because to put it plainly, a lot of times the idea that people have is that we go on these things and we just sit around and pray all weekend.
Yeah.
Now, I personally don't have a problem with that, but the thing is, it's fun, the fact that it's run by high school kids and it's put together by a fantastic team of adults who truly are children on the inside.
Yeah.
If you're watching this, I'm sorry. They truly are, it's a team of great people, and that's what makes it fun. Is it shows you that your faith is fun. It's a challenge, but it's a great challenge, and it's a great reward. And my advice is to keep an open mind and an open heart and just to say yes, because it's truly for anybody who wants it to be for them.
Folks, many young people are searching for love in a hate-filled world, and God can provide that. Isn't it sad, folks? 58 million unborn babies have been destroyed, and yet we're idolizing those people who are promoting that. We're actually giving them accolades. President Obama goes to the Planned Parenthood and says, God bless you. Could you imagine what's happening in this country today? But thank God there's light at the end of the tunnel. We have young people like Matt Straub and Danny Sinofsky and a lot of other people who have the faith and believe that there's a lot of things happening. And they pray and know that it's important to put God in your lives. We're all sinners, folks. We don't profess to be better than anybody. But for those people who harbor hate for no reason whatsoever, get rid of it. You know, say your prayers, go to church. You'll find out that there's a lot of great things happening. Congratulations to the both of you, and I wish you the very best. You're a good inspiration. Keep it up. I only can wish you the best to you and your family, okay?
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on my show. I appreciate it. We'll see you next time, folks.